This video is brought to you by Magic Spoon. If you've watched my channel before, you'll know that I'm a fan of cereal because I finished my mouthful.
A few moments later.
Cereal is great, but it's not always great for you. There were several years where I just never ate much cereal because as much as I like it, I just don't need that much sugar in my life. I mean, I don't have the healthiest diet in the world, and I generally keep in okay shape, but just not eating tons of unnecessary sugar and other stuff. Anyway, along comes Magic Spoon, and they're like, yo, facts boy, check this out. We made a cereal that has no sugar, that has 3 grams of net carbs, 4 grams here. Some of them have 3. Some of them have, this has 5. Anyway, along comes Magic Spoon, and they're like, yo, Cyber, check this out. We make a cereal with 0 grams of sugar, just a few net carbs, and lots of protein.
You what?
That's fantastic. And each serving, only 110 calories. And look, I don't know much about protein or carbs. I know the former is good and the latter not so much. But the 0 sugar thing, that really had me sold. It also tastes amazing. I'm not going to shove more of this in my mouth right now because of professionalism. But, you know, let's just say that it tastes amazing. It tastes like it's loaded with sweet, sweet sugar, while also being keto-friendly, gluten-free, low-carb, all of that good stuff. Now, originally they had 4 flavors: cocoa, fruity, frosted, and blueberry. I've got some of their more fancy flavors here in front of me right now. My favorite, peanut butter, cinnamon second favorite, cookies and cream. This one is a new one to me. Not my bag necessarily. I find it a bit weird to be eating cookies and cream for breakfast, but it's decent. And, you know, people have different flavor preferences. That's okay. Maple waffle, also very good. And of course, all the original flavors. Anyway, click the link below or go to magicspoon.com/brainfood and grab a variety pack to try it out. Use my promo code BRAINFOOD. You'll get $5 off Magic Spoon. And it's also got a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it, they'll give you your money back. Perfect. And now today's video. When Joe Medicine Crow of Billings, Montana, died in April 2016, he was the last war chief of the Crow Nation of Native Americans. Though casual honorific, in Crow culture the title of war chief is only bestowed upon those who have carried out 4 feats of bravery in battle. Touching an enemy without killing him, also known as counting coup, taking an enemy's weapon, leading a successful war party, and stealing an enemy's horse. Unlike his ancestors, however, Joe Medicine Crow accomplished these tasks not against rival tribes on the Great Plains of America, but against the Nazis on the battlefields of France and Germany. His exploits stand among the most improbable and astonishing feats of badassery of the entire Second World War. From the beginning, Joe Medicine Crow's life was steeped in the history and traditions of his people. As he wrote in 2003, "When I was born on October the 27th, 1913, there were no doctors or nurses around with their instruments, just medicine women who specialized in child delivery. With incense of burning cedar and the singing of sacred songs, I came into the world. I was singing too, but they probably thought I was wailing." Born to Amy Yellowtail and Leo Medicine Crow on the Lodge Grass Reservation in southern Montana, Joe came from a proud line of Crow warriors. His great-uncle, White Man Runs Him, was a scout for General George Custer at the 1876 Battle of Little Bighorn, while his grandfather, Chief Medicine Crow, was a highly respected leader who became a war chief at the age of only 22 and traveled frequently to Washington, D.C. to speak on behalf of his people. Raised by his grandparents, Joe spent much of his childhood training in the traditional ways of the Crow warrior, learning to ride horses, track and hunt game, and toughen his body and spirit by running barefoot through the snow and bathing in frozen rivers. He also immersed himself in the history and traditions of his people, memorizing legends and oral histories, and translating for his great-uncle when reporters came to interview him about Little Bighorn. However, life on the Lodge Grass Reservation was rife with hardship. By the 1920s, the tribe was down to only 2,000 members, and poverty and disease were rampant. At one point, Joe's family was forced to steal cattle to survive. In school, Joe was tormented by white children who poked him with safety pins, while other native children mocked him for trying to be a white man whenever he spoke English. Nonetheless, Joe was determined to complete his education, later stating that, "An elder told me, with an education, you are a white man's equal. Without an education, you are his prisoner." That to me was a personal challenge. I wanted to prove to people, not only to Indian people, but people in general, that an Indian is capable of becoming a good college student. People said that Indians are just too dumb. They are not capable of getting a college education. I wanted to disprove that. In 1929, Joe began attending Pecan College in Muskogee, Oklahoma, graduating with an Associate of Arts degree in 1936. He then completed his bachelor's degree in sociology and psychology at Linfield College, Oregon in 1938, and obtained a master's degree in anthropology from the University of Southern California in 1939, becoming the first member of his tribe to do so. His master's thesis, The Effects of European Culture Contact upon the Economic, Social, and Religious Life of the Crow Indians, remains a classic and influential work on Crow culture. Around this time, Joe landed a job on the writing team for the film They Died with Their Boots On, General Custer biopic starring Errol Flynn. When asked what he knew about the Battle of Little Bighorn, Joe recounted how his great-uncle, a white man runs him, thought Custer foolish for dividing his forces and attacking too early. This was apparently not what the film's producer wanted to hear, and Joe was quickly fired from the production. Joe would go on to write the script which has been used in every annual reenactment at Little Bighorn since 1965. In late 1941, Joe had nearly completed work on his doctoral thesis when Pearl Harbor was attacked and the United States entered the Second World War. Abandoning his PhD, Joe taught for a year at the Chemawa Indian School in Salem, Oregon, before taking a defense industry job at the Bremerton shipyards in Washington. Wanting to take a more active role in the war, in 1943, Joe joined the US Army, becoming a scout with the 103rd Infantry Division. He arrived in France in late 1944, just in time to take part in the Allies' final push into Nazi Germany. Dedicated as ever to preserving his culture's warrior traditions, Joe wore red paint on his arm beneath the uniform and a yellow eagle feather, a gift from a Sundance medicine man under his helmet. Joe Medicine Crow did not go into battle with the intention of becoming a war chief, but the opportunities presented themselves nonetheless. The first came in the winter of 1944 as Allied forces were attempting to break through the Siegfried Line, the formidable network of fortifications defending Germany's border with France. Joe and a squad of 7 soldiers were tasked with recovering explosives from a destroyed American position and using them to blow up a German pillbox. According to Joe, his commanding officer believed it was a suicide mission, but told him, "If anyone can do this, it's probably you." The CO's faith in Joe's abilities turned out to be well justified, for despite heavy artillery and machine gun fire, the squad managed to complete their mission without losing a single man, earning Joe a Bronze Star for his bravery. In early 1945, shortly after the Allies broke through the Siegfried Line into Germany, the 103rd Infantry were fighting their way through a small German town when Joe was ordered down a back alley to outflank the enemy. While sprinting through a garden gate, Joe suddenly ran into a lone German soldier, literally. I swung my rifle to knock his rifle off his hand. All I had to do was pull the trigger. Instead, Joe threw down his own weapon and began fighting the German hand-to-hand. A vicious struggle ensued, during which the German nearly managed to gain the upper hand, but Joe eventually got his hands around the enemy's neck and began to strangle him to death. It was then that the young German choked out a single word, "Mama." At this, Joe released his grip and let the soldier go. At a stroke, he had completed 2 more traditional feats of bravery, touching an enemy without killing him and taking an enemy's weapon. The fourth and most improbable task presented itself in the early spring of 1945 as the Germans were in headlong retreat back to Berlin. One night, Joe heard the clopping of horses' hooves and spotted a group of SS officers fleeing down the road on horseback. We followed their trail in the moonlight and arrived at a villa. We came there and I found a little pasture with a barn. I told my CO, maybe I should go get those horses out of the corral before you attack, because some of those SS guys might be able to escape on them. The commanding officer agreed, and later that night, Joe snuck into the corral armed only with an automatic pistol and a length of rope. After tying the rope into a makeshift bridle, as Crow warriors had done for centuries, Joe leapt onto the nearest horse, let out a mighty war whoop, and galloped out of the corral, leading some 50 horses behind him. The SS officer scrambled out of the villa in confusion, but did not open fire for fear of hitting the horses. As soon as Joe had ridden out of range, American artillery opened fire on the villa. His liberated herd of horses galloping behind him, Joe rode back into camp, turning triumphantly and belting out a traditional Crow praise song. When Joe returned to Montana in 1946, Crow elders informed him that he had successfully completed the 4 feats of bravery and bestowed upon him the title of War Chief. He remains the last member of the Crow Nation to be so honored, but Joe remained humble and ambivalent about his own exploits and war in general, later reflecting on the deeds of his ancestors at battles like Little Bighorn. In war, no one wins. Both sides lose. The Indians, so-called hostiles, won the battle of the day, but lost their way of life. Leaving his warrior past behind, Joe returned instead to his lifelong passion, preserving the history and traditions of his people. In 1948, he was appointed tribal historian and anthropologist for the Crow Agency, and over the following decades wrote dozens of books on Crow history, including Crow Migration Story, Medicine Crow, The Handbook of the Crow Indians' Law and Treaties, Crow Indian Buffalo, Jump Techniques, and From the Heart of Crow Country. He served as an advisor for dozens of museum exhibits and historical films, and was a subsequent guest speaker at Little Bighorn College and the Custer Battlefield Museum, and a founding member of the Buffalo Bill Historical Center in Cody, Wyoming, and he has even addressed the United Nations. For his achievements in both war and peace, Joe received dozens of honors, including honorary degrees from the University of Southern California and Rocky Mountain College, and the National Order of the Legion of Honor presented to him by the government of France in 2008. A building at the University of Southern California and a U.S. Veterans Administration clinic in Billings, Montana are both named after him, and in August 2009, U.S. President Barack Obama presented him with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor. After a long, distinguished, and occasionally badass career, Joe Medson Crow died in a hospice in Billings on April 3, 2016, at the age of 102. Shortly before his death, Joe reflected on his life and work and telling a reporter, "There is a middle line that joins two worlds together. I walk that line and take the best from each and avoid the worst. I've lived a good, well-balanced way of life. I encourage my grandchildren and young Crow Indians to do the same, and they will be happy." So I really hope you found this video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below. Don't forget to subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching.